What's up, YouTube, and welcome to another edition of Wolf King's Vids. Alright, we got conservative political commentator Dinesh D'Souza. He's criticizing teenage environmental activist Greta Thunberg, comparing her to an agent engaging in Nazi propaganda due to her particular Nordic phenotype. Let's watch.
You hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
That's Greta Thunberg, who is famous for being an aggressive climate activist. She's also underage. She's only a teenager, but she has pushed for politicians to pursue aggressive action in response to climate change. In fact, it was due to her political activism that led to last Friday's global climate youth strike, and we did some special coverage on that. An estimated 4 million people took to the streets to demand action by politicians in their country. Now, right-wingers like Dinesh D'Souza don't really stop at how low they'd go to attack people they disagree with, even if they're talking about children. And in this case, he compared Thunberg to a Nazi via Twitter. He tweeted the following: "Children, notably Nordic white girls with braids and red cheeks, were often used in Nazi propaganda, an old Goebbels technique. Looks like today's progressive left is still learning its game from an earlier left in the 1930s.
Okay, so, I mean, do we really have to break it down? Yeah, okay.
Alright, that's all the clip we need. So you heard it. Dinesh D'Souza, he thinks that because, Nordic white girls were used in Nazi propaganda, Greta Thunberg is similar to that because of her particular phenotype, because of the way she looks, essentially. That's like me saying, just to draw an analogy with Dinesh and his heritage, that's like me saying that Indians have been used as a way to outsource white labor jobs away from American workers, and then try to connect that to the American right, essentially. Now, would that be fair? Would that not be biased or prejudiced? Of course it would. Of course. But see, that's not registering in his head. It's just an incendiary attack. And here's what I think is funny about the right. I love how they complain about identity politics. They hate making it a white versus a black thing. At least the center right of the conservatives. But anytime they're dealing with making a criticism on the left, they can't help themselves but make it about identity politics. We've seen this with people like Dave Rubin, Candace Owens, Jesse Lee Peterson, people of that ilk, Molly Yiannopoulos. They love invoking identity politics. And in this context, I mean, it's just ridiculous. What does her being a young Nordic white girl have to do with her stance on climate change? As far as what I'm hearing from her speech at the UN, she is being 100% accurate. Yeah. The earth as a whole is getting worse in terms of these environmental disasters that we're seeing. We're seeing drought. We're seeing floods. We're seeing hurricanes. We're seeing our ocean becoming more acidic. We're seeing all of this, and it's backed by a scientific consensus. So it's not like it's being pulled out of thin air. One speech by one teenage activist has pissed off an entire part of the political spectrum. The right has just been attacking this girl, calling her a Nazi, calling her mentally ill, doing all this stuff, and not actually dealing with the ideas that she's putting out. And the funny thing is, all they can do instead of actually coming up with an argument against what she has to say is just throw out inflammatory rhetoric. And it is just laughable. And it shows what an impact she's putting out. But that's my analysis. Dinesh D'Souza is just one of a multitude of examples of right wing commentators who really can't substantiate a good counter argument against her. They're showing that basically it's going to be the younger generation that's going to deal with this climate change issue and actually come up with some kind of method or idea to deal with it. And these guys, the ones who are mocking, the ones who are, just saying these ad homs to try and discredit them. And what I think is funny about what Dinesh D'Souza said, it actually invokes Godwin's law. You start comparing your opponent's position with what the Nazis did, yeah, you're actually out of the conversation. You're done. But yeah, it is amazing how one teenage Nordic white activist friggin' managed to rile up the entire right to the point that they could all they could do is lash out and spit venom and invoke identity politics. That's laughable. That's funny. But the last thing all I have to say about this is the final thing. Nazism being a part of the left. That's just not the case at all. Fascism, as far as it's understood academically, is an authoritarian government that's highly nationalistic. So that's actually on the right. That's the far right. That's like the alt-right. So like the left would be at best, if you're talking about far left, that's communism. So yeah, Dinesh D'Souza doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He needs to take his ass back to school, actually learn some shit. But that's the totality of my clip. Yeah, he actually needs to come up with an argument rather than talk out of his ass. This has been Wolf King. Peace out. If you like this video, you know what to do. Stop by Dare to Know and Hell Satan. Good night. Oh, and one more thing. If Dinesh D'Souza actually cares about calling out Nazism, he should talk to his President Trump, who has basically just been playing apologist for Nazism. But again, that's all I gotta say. That's it. Good night.